Okay, in lesson 105, we're going to look at the other way to find determinants of 3 by 3 matrices. In particular, we're going to look at expansion by cofactors. And so the first thing we want to do is, I know we did this last year, so hopefully this will kind of ring a bell. But what is a cofactor? Let's jog our memory a little bit. So we need to find the cofactor of 7 and this determinant. So to find the cofactor of 7, you find the number 7, and then you take out its row, and you take out its column. And the numbers that are left, the 2, 2, 6, 5, we would find the determinant of that, as well as a -1 raised to the row plus column power. Okay, so this is in row 1. So this is row 2, row 3, row 4, and this is in column 2. So you would raise this to the 1 plus 2, or raise it to the third power. So -1 cubed is -1, so this would be negative the determinant of 2, 2, 6, 5. Okay. Now, your book has a little table here, which I think is kind of ridiculous, but I'm going to show it to you anyway, so I have to turn it sideways, sorry. But they have this little here to help you remember whether the cofactor should have a positive or a negative in front of them, rather than trying to memorize the order of these little pluses and minuses. I mean, I know they just alternate, and it doesn't seem like it's very hard to memorize them, but those little pluses and minuses are the -1 to whatever power. I just think it's easier to do it that way than to try to memorize that little table. And if you were ever to take a linear algebra course and you had to do determinants of 4 by 4 matrices and 5 by 5 matrices and 10 by 10 matrices, you would do it this way. You always do it to -1 to the row plus column. You don't want to have a 10 by 10 matrix of pluses and minuses and try to go through the whole matrix and figure out what it is. So this will always work. Okay, so now that we remember what a cofactor is, let's go ahead and remember how to compute the determinant using those cofactors. Okay, so we have a 3 by 3 matrix. We want to take the determinant of it, and we can choose any row or any column to do this. I'm going to go ahead and choose this column right here. And the reason that I'm choosing that is because when I eliminate this, I've got all these 1s over here, and 1 is easy to multiply by, and I doubt that I'm going to make very many mistakes multiplying by 1. And so that's why I chose that. But you can choose any one that you want to. Okay, so I'm going to get out a few little colors so you can follow what we're doing here. So we are going to start with the first value, 2. So it's going to be 2, and then multiply it by the cofactor. So the cofactor is going to, for 2, is -1 to the row 1, column 2, power. And then the determinant, so imagine we eliminate this row, and we eliminate, I'm going to do pens instead, because we'll eliminate this row and this column, and what we'll have left is a 1, -1, -2, -3. Okay, and then we'll add to that, just going down the row, the 3 times its cofactor, which is -1 to the row 2, column 2, power, 2 plus 2 power. And then when we eliminate row 3's row and its column, Oh, I don't have room to write my, so I'll have negative 4, 1, negative 1, and negative 3 left. And then I go to the last thing in my row, so I add 2 times negative 1. This is row 3, column 2. And when I eliminate its row and its column, my pen is rolling, I have the negative 4, 1, 1, and negative 2 left. Alright. So, negative 1 to the third power is negative 1, so this whole thing is negative 2. And then this determinant would be negative 3 minus negative 1 times negative 2 is positive 2. So negative 3 minus positive 2. And then we'll have 3. Then negative 1 to the fourth power is positive 1. So this is just going to be a plus 3. And the determinant here is 12 minus negative 1. And this is going to be negative 1 to the fifth power is negative 1. So this is going to be a minus 2. And the determinant is 8 minus positive 1. Alright, so this is negative 5 times negative 2 is 10. 12 minus minus 1 is 13. So this is 39. 8 minus 1 is 7. So this is minus 14. Alright, so this is 25 plus 10 is 35. Okay, and if you look at the book's solution to 105.2, they also got 35, only they used this row. If you want to look at their solution, you can, but it's a good way to sort of at least verify to ourselves that it doesn't matter which row or which column we use, we're always going to get the same value as long as we do it correctly. Okay, so your book used this row, I used this column, we still got the same answer. Alright, we'll just do one more of these. Okay, so this time you might ask yourself, okay, which should I choose? Is there any trick in choosing a good row or a good column? And when I see a 0 like this, I like to multiply by 0. So choosing a row or column with a 0 in it is a very good idea. Like, the more zeros the better, because then you don't really have to do any work, because multiplying by 0 is just easy. Okay, so let's go ahead, and this time we'll just choose this row on the bottom because it has a 0 in it. Alright, so we'll start with the 1. So we've got 1 times negative 1 to the row plus column, so it's row 3, column 1. And then when we eliminate the row and column, we'll just be left with 1, negative 3, 2, and negative 4. Then we'll move on to the 4. Plus 4 times negative 1 to the row 3, column 2. And we'll eliminate the row and the column. We'll be left with negative 3, 2, and 2, negative 4. And finally, plus 0 times, and at this point I just say, who cares? I mean, I'll write it in, but you don't really have to, right? It's going to be a negative 1 to the row 3, column 3. And when we eliminate the row and column, we'll have a negative 3, 1, 2, and negative 3. But this is just 0, so I didn't even really need to put any of that in there. I'm just doing it so that we can practice row, column kind of thing. But you don't need to do it because you're just going to multiply it all by 0 anyways, and it's going to go away. Okay, so we have -1 to the 4th is +1. So we just have 1 times 1. We don't even really need to write that. All we need is the determinant. So that would be -4 minus -6. Okay. And then, well, I guess we should have done -1 to the 5th power is -1. So this is actually going to be a -4. And then the determinant will be 12 minus 4. Okay, so we have -4 minus -6, so that's 2. And 12 minus 4 is 8, so this is -32. And we have a -30 as our final value for the determinant. And once again, let's see, that does match up with example 105 in the book. And they chose the 3rd column, which was this. They chose this. They still chose the 0 because they liked the 0 just like I did. But I chose the row, they chose the column, and we still get the same answers. So again, if you want to, see another solution, you can look at their solution as well. Okay, but hopefully that brings back how to evaluate a determinant of a 3 by 3 matrix using cofactors.